Aloha guys, hope everyone's doing well today. I am on location and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my 107 pilot license experience. So yesterday in the mail I got my 107 license. Stoked. Really stoked on having that guy in my hands finally. And like I'm sure a lot of you talk about it but you don't have it. You don't know how to go about getting it, or you may be overwhelmed or not sure if you need to study or not. So I hopefully will tell you a little bit about what I went through, and I'm not going to get too crazy into it, but I'll explain as best as I can what my process was to get it in my hands like I did just then. So I went and so I had a friend who actually has his 107. He does real estate photography and drone work, and he, I believe, did private lessons for about 60 bucks an hour. So that was one option, paying a bunch of money or paying money to get a bunch of privates, maybe 10 hours, so 10 times 60, 600 bucks, and then the test 150. I didn't have the money to do that, let alone during quarantine and work being slower for a lot of us. So I started looking on YouTube. I searched 107 test or 107 exam or drone 107 blah blah blah, and I came across Tony Northrup's video, and he had a 2-hour study guide video, which is cool. These guys put out these free content, so grateful for all of that. And I watched about an hour and a half of it. It seemed really informative for the most part, like good information. It's free, but I wasn't getting into it. I felt like I was watching a video as opposed to just, I felt like I maybe needed a course or something a bit more structured. So I started digging a little deeper, and I searched, and I found a guy named Gary Glenn, who I believe is out of Arizona, and his video was really slowed down and thorough, and I don't know, maybe it was his mannerisms. It just was very relaxed. I felt calm watching it. So Gary, good job with that. But he had a beautiful space he was in too. I don't know if it was his home or studio, but just the format of how he was going about explaining everything I resonated with personally. So it kind of gave me the indication on needing something more along those lines. And for whatever it was worth, probably because I was searching so much about the 107 thing, I came across an email or an ad about Pilot Institute. So Pilot Institute had a course that was, I believe, 13 hours of video content for $150. And if you didn't pass, they would give you $150 and refund your money. So obviously, how can you go wrong with that? So I emailed Greg over there at Pilot Institute and kind of inquired a little bit, and he got back to me, really personable, nice guy, you could tell. And I downloaded the content and I started the course. So I actually had an iPad Pro, a 12-inch iPad Pro. I put everything onto that, and I believe it was through the website. And he actually has an app too called, I think it's Teachable app, so you can actually access the course on your mobile device and take the course that way. So you can watch it while you're in your car, or listen to it while you're in your car, and kind of, take advantage of that whole side of the app thing. But again, it was essentially 13 hours of video content, and his style was so relaxed and engaging and clear and concise and really thorough. And it was broken down in a bunch of different, so you say you have a chapter, and it was broken down in a lot of smaller sections, maybe 2-minute videos, 4-minute videos, 7-minute videos. And along the way, they had little quizzes that you would take to kind of confirm that you knew the information that you just digested. And if you didn't get an 80% or greater, you should go and rewatch that material before you continue further. So I don't know how many sections there were, but there was a little progress bar from 0% to 100%, and that was essentially, your little gauge on how you were progressing along the course. So I think they said it was supposed to take 10 days to finish. I think I completed it in about a week. I was really ambitious and kind of getting into it, and I just I had nothing else to do, so I watched it as much as I could. But I also wanted to make sure I didn't rush through it, and I actually knew and digested the content. Some of it was confusing, like reading longitude and latitude. Certain sections, like there's sectional charts and notams and all kinds of different things that you need to really understand, and there's no way you can understand it unless you study for this. So for any of you who think that you don't need to study, I think you're kidding yourselves. It probably is harder than you imagine, because I studied and took the course and watched different videos and took Greg's course, the whole thing, and I completed it. And when I was taking the sample test, I was probably getting all the different sample tests that are out there. I was getting 90 to 95% on them. And when I actually went in to take the exam, between the pressure and I'm not a great test taker. I don't know, I get nervous or anxiety or something. But you know, you got to leave all your stuff. You get a little pencil, you're in a little room, you're kind of secluded, the pressure's on. The test was actually a lot harder than I thought. I was getting a lot of questions that I never got when I was taking the sample test, so a lot of new stuff was there that I never saw before, so that kind of caught me off guard. And a lot of the test for me was the sectional charts and longitude and latitude, and really the hardest parts of the whole entire 107 process. So being that prepared with Pilot Institute course, the Pilot Institute course that I just took, and feeling like I was really, really well informed, it enabled me to still pass with an 83%, but honestly I felt I should have easily got a 90, but the material on the exam that I actually took physically when I was at the testing center was way hard and way more intense than I realized, because a lot of the questions I never even saw before, and the questions that I did see were worded way differently. So just don't take it lightly, really be prepared and know that you should study. And I think Pilot Institute will completely get you there. Again, appreciation and grateful for all the other guys like Gary and Tony putting that information out there for us to have. But I think if you really want a complete A to Z package, you can't go wrong with Pilot Institute. And again, Greg answered all the questions that I had. They would even make little videos specific for your questions and answer them one by one. I think he was even kind enough to do a Zoom video call with me, which was super cool. But again, never not there. If you had a question, he answered every single one of them. So, and his ethics were amazing too, with talking about the airspace we share with manned pilots and giving you more information than you probably need. But later on, you understand why he did that. And that's huge, because we're sharing the airspace with these little guys that were flying safely on the ground, with people that are, you know, in their planes, with families, and these things can cause damage, and we should be aware of the airspace we share with them. And he, you know, he talked about flying in national parks and not being those guys, being kooky and getting footage and not doing things the right way and the respectful way, and having reverence for the airspace. And that's huge, having ethics and morals. You know, you want to have someone teaching you that, and who cares about others and cares about wildlife and birds. And just anyway, really appreciative of Greg and his energy that he put out there, and it allowed me to get my 107 successfully in a really reasonable amount of time. I would say 2 weeks. You can completely have your 107 test done, and essentially it's just a review for Greg and Pilot Institute saying, super stoked, psyched that I got my 107, and thank you. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone. Gary too, and Tony. So aloha, guys. Peace.